After the catastrophic failure that was Warlords of Draenor, Warcraft gamers around the globe were preparing their anuses for the redemption arc. It's the 30th of August, 2016, and Legion is upon us. Illidan's broken and beaten corpse has been resurrected once more for another contrived plot where we save Azeroth's wounds, but this time from the Burning Legion. I'm just going to come out and say it. Legion is my all-time favorite expansion, even through the bullshit. The raids were fantastic. The story was, I don't give a shit about the story, and it introduced one of my favorite pieces of content that's still relevant to this day, mythic keystones. And the people that I met from my journey from the start of Legion all the way to this day helped shape one of my most fondly remembered times in my gaming career. Yep, it had some problems. Yeah, we went through some hardships, and this is why today I present to you this garbage retrospective on World of Warcraft Legion. But it's not just me that's going to take you through this journey. I have an extra special guest, one of my favorite people I've ever met in Warcraft. Sairex is here to shepherd us through this shit show that's about to get underway.
Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction. My name's Sairex, and I've known this guy since Legion. That's when we met, and likewise, one of the best people I have ever met in my whole life. Love this man. He's a gamer, a true lad, and a drunk.
Thank you. Every part of that is right. So, Cyrex, when did you start playing World of Warcraft?
I started playing World of Warcraft uh, back in the day on a local. I live in Latvia, and I started playing in a local Latvian private server. It was back then. It was already running the last patch of TBC, and I believe that Wrath of the Lich King on retail was maybe 6 months off or something. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I started playing back then. Uh, my first character was actually a Tauren shaman. I convinced my friend to play a Tauren warrior, and I'll be a shaman, so we're like a melee caster duo.
Yeah.
We got to like level 20, and my friend realized that he doesn't actually enjoy playing a melee class, and he actually wanted to play a caster. So he re-rolled a Blood Elf Warlock, which actually was his main throughout his whole time playing. He actually became a little bit famous on the server. People actually recognized him in battlegrounds. People knew him in the raiding circles, and it was mostly because of his name. His name is Stogram, which basically means 100 grams, which means like a double shot of vodka. So obviously here in Eastern Europe, that's something that we hold very dear. So he became like a little mascot of the server.
A fellow drunk.
Yes. Well, no, actually, he didn't drink. He was more of an athlete kind of guy. He just named him themselves. That's for a meme, and
Okay.
that's it. But yeah, I started playing on retail during Wrath of the Lich King,
Okay.
somewhere around the Ulduar patch. By the way, best raid ever.
I'm inclined to agree. But were you playing Legion at the start of the expansion?
Oh yeah, since launch.
Okay.
I'm I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I played the midnight launch event,
What
and I pretty much played it throughout.
what class did you play at the start?
At the very start, yeah, I don't know if you knew me back then, but I started playing as a restoration druid, and through my IRL friend Nias, I met Morton. By the way, another great lad that we both know through World of Warcraft, a
Oh,
true
don't
raid
worry.
leader.
We'll get onto Morton soon enough.
Okay, okay.
So,
Uh,
first
but
off, sorry, go on.
no, no, go on. No, no, please.
So first off, we have to talk about humble beginnings. I only met Cyrex and the guild that I would pretty much stay in during, I don't know, up until like the end of Nighthold.
Yeah,
Uh,
something like that.
but what happened between like the start and getting to in that guild? So I started playing the expansion shortly after it dropped with my two friends Masty and Haffy. You might have met. either one of those two, maybe Happy. But they'd always casually dabbled in Warcraft, but the game never really had the lasting effect that it had on me for them. So I leveled a Resto Shaman with them all the way from 1 through 110 through dungeons because it gave us an instant queue. But I knew from the start that I'd be playing Enhancement at max level. This was my first character in the expansion, and the namesake of my channel, Trichromatic, and I would play this character for the most of the expansion. Just to give you a disclaimer, I fucking stole this name. It's not my name. Quick rundown on that. A video that was uploaded by Iron Pineapple about Dark Souls 3 had a music track in it. It was a fucking good music track called from a guy called Trichromaticist. And I kept going back to that video, and I noticed that he changed his channel name. So I'm like, I'm stealing that. My name's now Trichromatic, and I'm still Trichromatic to this day. People refer to me as Tricro or whatever. But yeah, enough about that. We all dinged 110 after a couple days of casual play, because I was still in full-time unemployment, and those two were unemployed as fuck. And I was fucking ready to sink my teeth into the end game content. The first raid of the expansion, Emerald Nightmare, still hadn't come out yet, so I still had some time to get gear and consumes and enchants and all that shit. Me, Masty, and Happy ran through all the dungeons, Mythic Zero, cleared all that shit, and we were coming to the point where to get any more gear, we would have to raid. Now, Masty was already in a guild, and he mentioned that they were going to do Emerald Nightmare on the release night, and that he had a spot in the raid already. So the logical thing to do would be to ask, can me and Happy have a spot? This guild, I can't remember the name of it. It was one of those cesspoolish kind of guilds that you get invited to. Shitload of people just get invited when you start playing. I had no fucking clue on how to judge the quality of a raid, a guild, or even how somebody played. But I was just happy that we were going to raid day one. So, comes down to it. The night of the raid, I got my ass ready, online, to skip those god-awful Kazakh queues that we all know and love. My consumes were ready, my gear was enchanted, I was looking fresh. I checked the strategies through the dungeon journal while I stood outside of the raid for 3 fucking hours. So, the time comes. Fucking hell, I can't even breathe. The invites go out, and I jump inside the Discord where they give the link to, and I enter the raid, and I'm eagerly awaiting this first pull. Now, I hadn't done any raiding since, like, Wrath of the Bitch King, back when I was, like, fucking 13. So I really wanted to do well, and I just did not want to fuck up when the first mechanic inevitably came my way. So we're in there, we pull Nithendra, the very first boss of Emerald Nightmare, and she goes down on the first attempt. And there's talk in Discord about, like, logs and parses, and I had no fucking clue what either of those were at the time. But I had my trusty recount to let me know where I stacked up against the rest of the raid. 3rd on damage. Not bad at all. The reason why I wasn't first is because the 2 people above me were paladins, and if you if you don't know about Legion Paladin, they had a passive where if someone in the raid fucking died, they got an insane damage increase buff, and loads of people died on that first thing. So those guys were pumping, and people were steadily dying enough to give them this buff. So I looked in the Discord, and there's a link to Warcraft logs, and it lets you see how you stack up against the rest of, like, all the other players who play your spec. Once I saw that shit, mate, I was fucking hooked. I became a log whore instantly, and that moment has cemented how I've developed over the last 3 to 4 years as a player. So we ended up clearing Xavius on the first night. Emerald Nightmare was a fucking pushover raid, but since I had nothing to compare it to, I just thought that this guild were really good, when in fact they were fucking garbage. Now, Happy and Masty, in their eyes, because they'd already killed Xavius, they completed the fucking game, dude. They saw absolutely no reason to continue grinding their dick through this gear cheese grater, and they didn't give a shit about logs like I did, so they dipped really fucking quick. But I ended up staying in this guild and attended their heroic guild runs, which followed shortly after. So we tried heroic, and by the end of the 3rd lockout, we downed Xavius. Felt pretty good, but I was not satisfied. I felt like I could achieve more. I wanted to do mythic raiding. So I said my goodbyes to the guild that I was in. And I thanked them for letting me take all their good gear, because nobody fucking played Hunter, and I was the only enhancement shaman. Sweet. I scoured the forums for a guild to join, since I realised that trade chat was going to get me fucking nowhere. And I looked for all the guilds that were doing mythic raiding, preferably at the start of progression, so that I didn't like cheat and skip out on some of the progression bosses. Very quickly, I found the guild that I would be in for a very long time. It was an instant fit for me. I joined against the odds. Big up of against the odds. And this is where I met Sairex and began mythic progression. There was just one fucking problem though. One teensy tiny fucking absolutely ginormous problem. I didn't have a fucking legendary yet. If you're unfamiliar with Legion legendaries, be fucking glad, because it is easily the worst system for introducing legendaries into the game. More about the guild and the people I met, and this is finally the bit where you get to talk. Let's discuss these people, shall we? First person, Avani.
Oh, yeah. Avani joined during Nighthold.
Did
He
he?
was our prot warrior. Yeah,
N-
he wasn't there for Emerald Nightmare, I don't think.
no, he definitely was, because
No,
um,
he was there when we went back to try Mythic progressing, but Nighthold was already out.
okay,
He
right.
was
So
initially recruited for that.
Avani's later, and we can come to him. Second person would be McNoodles.
Oh, yeah, one of the OGs.
McNoodles. I still know McNoodles to this day. McNoodles is a fucking insane player, dude. He's so fucking good at the game.
Yeah,
And he's
any spec he plays.
any
Any
spec
spec.
he plays, he fucking heals. Like, he's always been a good tank, and he's a really good DPS as well. Solid player, absolutely wonderful lad. I love McNoodles to bits. The
The
next
man's
person
just
is
good.
Silveret. All right,
Yep.
Silveret was at the time our raid leader. He was playing Fire Mage.
Yes, indeed.
We might refer to Silveret as Morton from now on, because we also still know him. McNoodles and Silveret, they know each other in real life, so they've always had like that intrinsic link together. But I always really liked Morton, and I didn't cause any trouble when I was in this guild, so he tolerated me quite nicely. So Silveret's a big part of the guild. Next person is Hicarian. Remember Hicarian?
Yeah, he was the original guildmaster.
Yes. And he dipped
Paladin.
very quickly. I think
Yeah,
he
he did.
healed. He was like the paladin healer.
Wasn't he a prod? No, he was a healer. Yeah, you're
Yeah, he
right.
was definitely healer. I can't remember who the other tank was before Avani.
Huh.
It was definitely Noodles.
You know what? I can't remember either.
Yeah, this is lost to time now, so we're never gonna fucking remember that, so we'll move on.
Oh no, I think I remember now.
Who?
Was it? He later started maining Shaman, Elemental Shaman, if I recall correctly, and then later switched to Frost Mage.
Right.
You
Completely
know him.
forgettable.
No, he was our friend for a while. Like we rated and did M plus with him quite a bit, but for he played these three characters on and off, and I just can't remember any of them for some reason.
Who was it?
Uh, his mage's name was something starting with A.
Oh, this is gonna fucking kill me. It wasn't Deru, was it?
No, fuck him. Fuck Deering. That
he's on the list though.
little priestly fuck.
He actually did me a solid, and I'll come on to that later. But yeah, anyway, I met you, and the next couple of people I remember are Icana. Was he there
Oh,
in Nighthold only, or was he there for Emerald Nightmare?
I think he may have joined around late Emerald Nightmare, but yeah, he definitely was there from the very start of Nighthold.
Right. He was a really fucking good player. He was Frost Death Knight player, really good. He like always got 90% logs, so I had a lot of respect for Icana as a player.
Yeah,
Uh,
didn't talk much, but was definitely a very skilled player.
yeah, never heard his voice. And next up
I
we
think
had
I've heard it once when I played CS:GO with him.
CS:GO. Fuck. Next we've got Sam Keel.
Ah, I love that guy.
I really like Sam Keel as well. He's a cool guy. He was a Warlock player. I think he exclusively played Warlock. He was a British guy. I think his job was he was an armed guard guarding something.
I think you may be right. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, cool guy. Anyway, he was pretty good at the game. He easily passed high.
Yeah, I loved competing with him on AoE fights in DPS.
Yeah, you were telling me about that just tonight. And similarly, on the Warlock team, we also had Rumke.
Oh yeah, also like that guy. He was from somewhere like southeastern Europe, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely an Eastern European guy, but I really like Rumke. He was a solid player.
Yeah,
Bilibin. We also had Bilibin. He was a druid balance player.
yeah. Danish or Swedish? Swedish.
Yeah, Swedish because he was in the group of Swedes that fucked off and kept coming back every now and again, like in the summer.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Bilibin was famous in our guild because you could tell when he was coming back to his computer because he had the creakiest fucking door.
Yes, I forgot about that. Oh,
This fucking
thank
door,
you for
dude.
reminding me.
I don't forget. This is why, like, if this had lasted like another year, I would have forgotten the fucking door, dude. But this fucking door would send the entire raid into fits of laughter every fucking time. It never got old.
Every time, without fail.
But he was a group of like Swee players who would every summer like fuck off and stop playing the game and then come back when summer was over. And we played a lot of content with him and he was pretty good. He was actually a good player.
Yeah, very solid player and a cool guy. I liked him a lot.
Next up we've got Chronic, who was a Havoc Demon Hunter player exclusively. He was from
Yeah.
Norway. More on Chronic later because he's actually an important character for our narrative. Next up, we had Kiriko, another Frost Death Knight player. Definitely not as good as Icana, but
He
uh,
was close.
he was all right.
Actually, also part of the Swedish gang. Him, Icana, and Bilibin.
Yeah, so these guys would fuck off, which was really sad because these guys were really good. It's
Yeah,
hard to replace people who have that like chemistry in the guild and are that fucking good.
they were all really solid players.
Next person up in the list is Crunchy Crab. This guy,
Oh,
this guy, like you
my
could tell from
boy.
Sirex's reaction, everybody had love for Crunchy Crab. He had several different escapades. Okay, it took us such a long time to realize that this was a 13-year-old kid. This fucking 13-year-old kid was out DPSing like most people in the raid. He never spoke, obviously, because if everybody knew that he was like 13, they'd roast him. That's just how like, online games work for you when you're a young person. But he would piss off Silver very quickly for a variety of reasons. He also played a shaman. Uh,
Elemental.
yeah, elemental shaman. He played enhancement for a bit, but for the most part, he was a elemental shaman.
And do you remember when he changed his name?
Yes, dude, holy shit. All right, I don't know why he did this, but he changed his name to Cucklust. And this sent fucking Silver into a manic rage because every time that a mechanic got called out on the mythic section, he would have to say Cucklust, and this would really trigger Morton. He fucking hated it. We loved it, of course. So we, when did he
He changed
state?
it back immediately.
Yeah, he had to change it back, dude. I don't know
Yeah.
how long realistically he could have kept it without getting
Oh,
ganged up on
one
by
raid.
Blizzard.
One
One
raid was
raid.
max.
Okay, one raid.
Come on, let's be realistic here.
When did he leave? Because I remember he stopped raiding with us at some point.
Yeah, something school related.
Okay, so it wasn't
Cause
just like
cause he couldn't play in the evenings anymore. I think so. He only played like during the day, just doing dungeons with his friends or some shit.
right. And next person on the list is Soft Cutter. All right, Soft Cutter was from Egypt, and I could
No,
tell
Israel.
Israel. Okay, Israel or Egypt, one of those things. But Soft Cutter, holy shit, Soft Cutter was the brunt of so many jokes. He wasn't necessarily a bad player, because he had a fucking title on that was like Realm First Trial of the Grand Crusader. So he was not a bad player. He was just a bit of a dumbass.
No, didn't he have one for Next Ramus?
No, that was Chronic.
Oh, oh yeah, you're right.
But yeah, he had he was definitely a decent player, but he was just a bit of a dumbass, and he ended up adding me on Facebook. Actually, I have nothing against Soft Cutter personally. You know,
Yeah, his heart was in the right place. I can't hate the guy, but yeah, when we were doing fights, like for example, what was that Nathrazim's name in Nighthold?
Tichondrius.
Yeah, Tichondrius. On Mythic Tichondrius, rogues had a very important role to play with soaking, and he would just constantly fuck it up.
Yeah, in fact, even in the kill video that I've got on my channel, um, everybody's asking Soft Cutter, are you definitely sure? Are you okay? You're going next. Are you gonna? Have you got it, dude? And he's like, yeah, of course. And I think he ends up dying in the fight.
Uh,
I
no, but
fucking love
I,
Soft
I
Cutter.
feel bad because I'm no not by any words a great player. I think I'm adequate at best. So maybe I'm not in the place to judge Soft Cutter. It's just that I've seen so many funny moments that it stuck this way.
Yeah, I it wouldn't have been the same without Soft Cutter. He was a rogue
Oh yeah,
player, and he never did like bad DPS, but he never did like good DPS either. He was just like the guy you took because he was there.
well that well that's really mean now.
No, no, it's not. It's really important to be reliable, and he was reliable up until like every fucking raid until the end of Nighthold when we split.
True, that is correct. He was there for every raid. I think his attendance was pretty much perfect.
Spotless. He ended up getting married. Congrats, Softcutter. If you're watching
Congrats.
this for some reason, I fucking love you, dude.
I love you too, man. I'm sorry about everything we said, but I'm glad you're happy now, not playing this shitty
He
fucking
still
game.
plays. He still
Oh,
plays, dude.
what?
I've got
Dude,
him on
why?
BattleNet.
uh,
Next person up on the list is Hechka. Hechka was another enhancement shaman player, and my the drive that kept me to carry on improving, because the competition between me and Hechka for performance in raids was like neck and neck, dude. Like hairpin neck and neck. And we always had the same sort of gear. We always had the same sort of legendaries. It was really fun competing against Hechka, asking him questions about enhancement and stuff like that. I don't know where the fuck he went though. And last but not least is Diruo, uh, an
did it
officer.
have to come to this?
It did. All right. I'm sure. I never had a problem with the guy. He always stuck up for me. Perhaps it was because he was also a shaman player, and that we had to kind of like stick together. But Sairex can probably tell you a little bit more about Deer and maybe possible run-ins that you've had with the guy.
The only good thing I can tell about Diru is that he is a competent player. I'm pretty sure every single healing spec that I saw him play, he was above average, at least at it. Maybe except like when he tried Discipline Police at one point when it wasn't in a really good spot, but whatever. But the guy was so fucking nitpicky and is just always looking for something to complain about. Even when we were succeeding, he would just feel like he just needs to say something negative. Just I don't know, because his brain works that way. He thinks it's for the better. I don't know. We have completely different mentalities, even though we're both players that try to do the best we can. But somehow, personality-wise, we're complete opposites.
Right. And now, actually, there's one more person I don't have on this list, but should be on the list is Nias. You talked about him a little bit earlier. Nias was a fucking character. I love Nias. You need to tell me more about Nias, because anything I say is inaccurate, and I might throw in an extra tidbit if you miss something. All right, tell us about Nias.
I'm gonna completely skip everything about our IRL friendship. And in the game, well, Nias is he's always been a priest player. He usually would jump from one character to the other. He'll say, "Oh, I main druid now." Like he would really like guardian druid for some time, or he would play enhancement shaman in PvP. But he would always just come back to priest. I think he had like at least 10 max level priests at one point.
That's fucking mental, dude. I don't know anybody else who has like that many priests. Why the hell did he level that many priests?
He just likes priests. It's like when he gets bored of playing other classes, he goes back to playing priests. When he gets bored of playing priests at high level, he just starts leveling the priests because he has fun leveling priests.
But always holy and never shadow, never discipline. Discipline, in Nias' opinion, was for bitches.
He would always play holy in PvP and in PvE. Doesn't matter what was meta at that point. Even in PvP, when pretty much 99% of priests played discipline, he would play holy and he would perform quite well.
I
I
definitely
do
love
have to
Nias.
say that he was a much better PvP player than a PvE player. He was very good at PvE, but for example, when it came to mythic rating, then it, there were like some things where he maybe wasn't catching up with the rest of the raid.
Yeah, definitely slowed down progression a little bit, and I think that was our biggest issue throughout against the odds is that progression was really slow. It was definitely like we would progress, but it was just too slow. We would never finish a tier in time.
Yeah, and it was I think mainly because there was just this one small contingent of the guild, small but still like significant, that dragged things down. But I think that's the case with most guilds of our level.
Yeah, because we were like not hardcore. I don't even think the correct term is like semi-hardcore. It was just a bunch of dudes who were decent at the game, unorganized, doing mythic raiding.
True.
That seems a little
I
more
mean,
fitting.
I personally consider anything that isn't racing for world firsts to be casual raiding.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you're not racing, then just fucking
What are you doing?
go at your own pace, whatever.
Yeah, but still, like, what's the proportion of people who actually, kill a mythic boss versus get to where we got up to? Because we got some really good progression on all of the tiers actually, every single
Yeah,
one,
we've gotten top 100 realm guild quite a few times,
but we
if I
just never
recall
could
correctly.
quite keep it up. So
Yeah.
anyway, moving on. Uh, the first thing that I have to get off my chest was getting my first legendary, and it was during the normal or heroic. I think it was heroic run that we did with Against the Odds because I exclusively raided with these guys and I never did pugs throughout the whole of Legion pretty much. And it was Emelon's Charged Core for enhancement, and I got it from Scenarius, and I was pretty happy about that because it was a good legendary, even if it wasn't like a specifically single target legendary. I could use this in Mythic Plus, and I could pop off with it. It was a good legendary, so I was happy. Um, I guess the next thing to talk about would be Mythic progression because that's where we left off. So we started off with the first boss of the raid, Nithendria. I remember that we downed it pretty fucking easily. I think the new mechanic on that was like she would mind control a bunch of people, so you had to control getting your stacks, and if you had like over a certain amount of stacks, you had to push to get the stacks, so you get mind controlled and DPS down. And if too many people got mind controlled, you fucking died. But overall, Nithendra was really quite, you know,
It was a solid first fight.
yeah. It was easy though. We breezed through
The mobs before her were annoying as
it.
hell to fucking
Worse than the
clear.
actual boss.
Yeah, definitely worse.
Next up, Ursoc. I remember Ursoc being okay. Actually, it's like in every raid tier there was like just a DPS check boss, and
Yeah,
you didn't have to
and
do much about it. Ursoc was that.
this one had slightly more mechanics than the average DPS check in the raid. It
Yeah.
wasn't like a patchwork fight.
No,
I
I don't
did
think they'll
really
ever make
like
a
it as a
patchwork
DPS.
fight. I couldn't see them doing many more patchwork fights. Even the ones in like later tiers that were considered the patchwork fights were still quite in depth. But we downed Ursoc, and the thing about Ursoc is, I think on the very first mythic kill of Ursoc, I think I bonus rolled a max level Titan Forged with a socket, um, Bloodthirsty Instinct trinket. And dude, this fucking trinket was nuts. I kept this trinket because it was better than everything else until late into Tomb of Sargeras progression. That's how fucking good it was. It was better than any trinket that you could have gotten from Nighthold. I couldn't have. It couldn't have been better. It was max Titan Forge. I was buzzing. My DPS popped off because of this trinket. Um,
Yeah. So next was Il'gynoth.
no, it wasn't. It was Dragons of Nightmare.
I think we did Il'gynoth first and then Dragons.
Il'gynoth was the hard boss. We did it Nythendra Ursoc, Dragons of Nightmare, Alerith Ren Feral, then Il'gynoth.
I think actually the spider boss was the one that caused us the most trouble out of that tier.
Yeah, Il'gynoth was a hard boss. It was like touted as the hard boss of the raid tier, but we didn't have that much problem with it. It took us longer than most, but I think we had the same sort of progression time on Alerith and Feral as
Il'gynoth was. Oh, sorry.
no, I was collecting my thoughts, but both of those were like the getting up there bosses now.
Il'gynoth was the only boss that I really enjoyed playing as a healer, especially on mythic difficulty. That was a real healer fight.
Yeah,
Do you
soaking the
recall it?
fucking. Do I recall?
Uh, how many healing cooldowns had to be uh like organized together
Yeah, that
for
was
during the soaking phase.
a proper rotation, like a heavy rotation, and it it was 5 healer fight, wasn't it? Maybe 6.
I think 5 was doable if you had 2 shamans. I'm pretty sure only 1 druid is necessary in that fight, and I was that druid.
Yep, but
His trank isn't really that great.
nah, it was more like just keeping everybody's health sort of similar, which is why Spirit Link was really good on that fight. We had a couple of shamans
Yeah,
ready to go on
that
that fight,
was.
so we cleared both of those guys. But we didn't talk about Dragons of Nightmare. I'd say Dragons of Nightmare was probably my favorite boss from Emerald Nightmare.
On Mythic, maybe.
On Mythic for sure,
Yeah, that Mythic mechanic was pretty cool.
because I was part of the Portal Boys. I was always the like DPS on the boss for me didn't really matter. I just went into the portal and juiced on the fucking mob.
Weren't we in the same group?
We were actually in the same group because you were really mobile as a druid, and you know
Oh
the
yeah,
healing was good.
there
You could
was
always
only
keep us
one
stocked.
group for all portals, right?
Yeah, that group stayed consistent, and we had Dragons of Nightmare on farm very very quickly. It was quick progression on that. I really fucking like that fight.
Yeah, also a fun fight for a healer. Now that I remember it.
Now, at this point of mythic progression, I have to explain that I turned the entire guild into gambling addicts.
I was hoping we would talk about this.
Yeah, there's no way I couldn't talk about it. So, remember death rolling? Like the way it works is that you roll from 1 to how much gold you want to bet, and so like 1 to 10,000, and then if you get like 6,700, the person that you're death rolling with goes from 1 to 6,700, and the person who rolls a number 1 loses, and they have to hand over the gold to the other person. Now, Avani Avani had like 2 fucking million gold. I think maybe even a bit more from when he played Warlords of Draenor. And we also had a couple of rich boys who played Warlords of Draenor because you could just print money from your garrison. We ended up bankrupting Avani by the end of Nighthold. I specifically remember winning about 240k from him
Jesus.
while we were on the trash for Tychondrius. So he was really fucking mad. I can't believe it. I don't know how I would have paid him because I didn't have the money. He just said, Tricro, I'm going to bet you 240k. Everything I've got. I was like, yeah, okay. I think I was going to buy a WoW token to pay him back if I lost. But I ended up winning and I spent it all on consumes.
Jesus.
So yeah, the gambling addict phase never stopped. It carried on all the way throughout Legion.
It ruined me financially.
Yep. And I definitely went back down to 0 gold multiple times because of death rolling.
Yes, same.
Mythic Plus wasn't really a big thing for any of us yet. I remember the big boy group wasn't a thing yet. We can't talk about the big boy group until later. That was because that's a massive plot point. But we do like a little bit here and there, just with like randos, and sometimes people from the guild. But what I tended to do instead of doing Mythic Plus was I would get fucking stoned, smoke weed, and just herb in like Suramar, and it's basically anywhere. Like, I think the big ticket herbs were like Suramar. What's that place? Stormheim. You could get a lot of money from herbing from there. So that's all I did pretty much all day, every day until I was in the raid. I pretty much lived to raid. I really fucking loved raiding at this point. But back to like mythic progression, we got to Cenarius, right? And we didn't finish him because we knew that Trial of Valor was coming out, and we wanted to get ahead on Trial of Valor. Now the thing with Cutting Edge, the achievement is that once the next raid tier comes out, you can't get the achievement anymore. But Trial of Valor was like a 0.5.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full tier. So you could still get the Cutting Edge for Emerald Nightmare whilst you were progressing on Trial of Valor. And we did actually progress a little bit on Trial of Valor. And I want to discuss that before we go back to Cenarius and whatever. So, Mythic Odin. Yeah, we smashed normal and heroic. We're not even going to fucking touch on normal and heroic because we were good players. We just smashed through the content, and it wasn't that hard. So Mythic Odin, the first raid. What did we get him down on the first raid of us doing Mythic Trial of Valor?
I think so.
Yeah,
Definitely not on the first try, but on the first raid, yes.
because Odin was pretty easy. But yeah, we downed Mythic Odin, and we were still in like the height of recruiting people. So we had the mainstays, and then we had a couple of new people, and we had this. Was it a warrior? We're going to talk about it in Sairex. It was a warrior. We fucking downed Odin, and then we looked in the chat, and we see this message. Thanks, guys. I'm moving to Twisting Nether, and that was like an instant fucking mainstay meme.
Yeah, I will remember that to the end of my days. He just types that and immediately leaves the guild and goes offline.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
You can't make that shit up.
And I don't know what happened to that guy. We didn't give a fuck because it was just so hilarious. It was fucking hilarious.
I'll be fucked if I remember his name, but I'll never forget this Twisting Nether bullshit.
Twisting Nether's a shit realm as well.
Yeah, Twisting Nether has always been a meme. That's the icing on the cake.
So next boss is fucking Gwarmfield. Did we do it? Gwarmfield?
I think we did, because it's like a really big DPS check, and we had a good DPS.
Yeah, we had a bunch of fucking monkeys
Yeah.
that could only just do the mechanics, but we could pump and I was included in that list of monkeys. So I reckon we downed Garmfield, whatever the fuck his name is, because it was just a DPS check, and healers heal. Obviously, we didn't fucking do Hellier because not only was it incredibly difficult, but we ended up going back to Emerald Nightmare to finish off progression. So
Yeah, but we never did get cutting edge.
no, we didn't. We got close, right? Did we down Cenarius? I don't think we did. We did down Cenarius.
Yeah, we did,
We
but
down Cenarius.
but we didn't get time before cutting edge expired
Yeah,
to get Xavius.
which is really sad because that is where I could have realistically pieced out as a WoW player and been like, I'm done. I'd done Mythic, fucking completed the game.
Well,
But I
it's
was
a good
like,
thing we didn't then.
yeah, really good thing. So that carried on into Nighthold. We did get some progression on Xavius, but we just didn't finish him. It was an easy boss. Like the whole of Mythic Emerald Nightmare was considered very easy on all of the difficulties, and it definitely felt that way. I didn't have any, comparison because that was my first Mythic raid tier.
Yeah.
So I was feeling good for Mythic Nighthold. I was like, let's fucking smash it. Mythic Nighthold are ready to go. We're geared to the teeth, and we've got like a core of raiders ready to go. But clearly that didn't fucking happen. So shortly after this point, I got my best in slot legendary for enhancement, which is the ring, Eye of Twisting Nether. Didn't really do anything special. It was just the best in slot ring. You either got it or you didn't. But I was stoked about it because it means I didn't have to grind my dick off through all the content, which I was already doing. Fuck legendaries. Let's just take a step back and talk about how shit legendaries were in Legion.
Oh yeah. I do not like the way legendaries work at all. Well, the acquiring them part. Of course, later they put in a bunch of ways to get them like yourself artificially with some currency. But in the beginning, it was fucking hell. This you never know. Some people get a legendary from just killing a mob before they're even max level. Some people get it from emissary chests. I got most of my legendaries from emissary chests.
Yeah, same.
My very first legendary I got when I already started doing heroic Emerald Nightmare. I still remember the wrists for Resto Druid dropped from heroic Il'gynoth. Uh, I was in a raid where I think maybe only 3 people didn't have a legendary yet. So that's how late I got ones. I can talk about how much I hate that random bullshit all day.
Yeah. At the start, you could only wear one legendary, and there was like a tree of things that you had to research before you could use your second. And by the time that I had my second one, I could acquire the second one and wear it, I didn't have my first. So that was really bad. And Blizzard made a couple of changes to make legendaries a bit easier to acquire because some people got really fucking lucky and got like 2 legendaries, and there was like a hard cap. If you had 2 legendaries at that point, you couldn't get your third. Players realized that, and they went ballistic at Blizzard, so they changed it. And at this point, legendaries started falling into people's laps, especially mine. I think that's around the time when I got mine. But fuck legendaries, you could just get them by doing anything. But most likely it was going to be the emissaries. You built up your bad luck protection, as most people referred to it as, and hoped that you got not a shitty one. And there was a lot of shitty ones. A fucking lot of them. So if you got your best one first, it's like, yes. So, Nighthold drops. Nighthold normal progression was pretty standard. However, on the very first day that Nighthold released, I got the new best in slot legendary for Enhancement Shaman, or just Shaman in general. It was the best one, and it increased the duration of your bloodlust to like 1 minute and 10 seconds. But at the time, you could do some weird shit where you could equip it Bloodlust before the pull happens, switch off the legendary, and you still have the full time. So you essentially have 3 legendaries. I didn't get to utilize that because I didn't realize you could do that. I wasn't a cheating bitch.
Yeah, better that way.
So we did normal. Do you remember? Because I don't. How quickly or slowly did we do Nighthold Heroic?
Ooh, when we started getting to the harder bosses, it became quite difficult. I think. What was the name of the second to last boss?
Elisand.
Yeah, I think she was a kind of difficult at first, but once we got the hang of it, she actually became one of the easier bosses.
Yeah, because you could Bloodlust like 3 times on that boss, I remember.
Yeah.
I was happy about that. That meant I could pump 3 times. With the new legendary that I got, that's like 3 minutes and 30 seconds of pure unadulterated pumping time.
But then it was Gul'dan, and at that point in the game, Gul'dan blew everything else out of the water.
Yep. Nighthold
That
was not
was
easy.
that was a last boss, definitely.
It was a
The
good
only
boss.
thing that rivaled that was probably Black Hand in the Foundry.
Warlords.
Yeah. Say what you want about Warlords, but that raid was pretty awesome, and that last fight on Mythic was amazing.
I didn't play Warlords at that point, so you're the only authority figure that I have on that. But rest assured, I was really impressed with Gul'dan as a final boss. And overall, I'd say Nighthold was like at least on Heroic, and it got better on Mythic. I'd say Nighthold was like a 7.5 out of 10. If EN was like a 6 out of 10, I'd say EN was like a 5-6 out of 10.
Nah, I'd give it a 6 because
Yeah.
there were some fights that I really enjoyed.
But Nighthold Heroic progression was done, and we had no other option in sight than to do Mythic. But before that, we have to introduce some more characters into our narrative, okay? And the rise of the big boy group. Introducing Ranjan, otherwise known from here on out as Linus, and his IRL friend Dragonflash. A little bit about Linus. I still know him today. I still play with him. One of my favorite Swee friends. He's like 40-year-old dude. Exclusively a healer player. Does not like playing DPS or tank, which worked for me because I just pumped. Like I turned up and I did a lot of damage. So for him to turn up and do good healing, instant friend right there. So he was in the big boy group. Now the big boy group was a Mythic Plus group because we realized that we had to do more than just fucking raid to get gear. Even though it came across quite easily, but you could get some really good gear by doing Mythic Plus. So we constructed a group of great players and pushed keys, and we were like the prime key pushers in the raid in the guild. So the big boy group consisted of me, Sairex, whenever he wanted to play, Chronic, because Chronic was still around. McNoodles was our de facto tank. So you've got a full-time DPS player in me, full-time tank player in McNoodles, full-time healer in Linus, and that was like the fucking foundation. And we rotated in DPS players. So the other players were Zenda, which was a warlock, and
Yeah.
Rumke. Rumke would often run Mythic Plus with us, and he was really good. We got some really good keys. We were pushing like 15 plus keys by the time that we were doing Heroic and Nighthold, which was pretty good. Pretty good from what I remember. And being in this big boy group became a little bit of a status symbol within the guild, and some people started caring way too much about being in the big boy group or not. I personally didn't give a fuck because I was going to do Mythic Plus anyway, but yeah, more on that later because it caused a little bit of drama. So the big boy group was off to a roaring start, and we had shitloads of gear, so we were doing really well. and this is where we get into Nighthold Mythic progression, where things started to slow down and go a little bit wrong for us, because Nighthold Mythic was fucking hard. All right, some bosses were like really easy, some bosses were just insane. Bosses like Star Augur, which we never did, by the way. We never did it. Gul'dan also was like an incredibly tough boss. Elisand was hard on heroic, so you better know that bitch was bad on mythic. And what was that? What was that bitch in the courtyard called? The one just after
Oh,
Trilliax.
I don't. I know which one you're talking about. I don't remember her name.
Ah, I'm gonna have to go in the game and what's her name?
For, for the life of me, I can't remember.
Spellblade Alluriel. We never got onto her, but she was pretty fucking difficult from what I
Oh,
was told.
did we never end up killing her at all?
Never got a single pull on her, mate. Here's how the progression happened from what I remember. We started off with Scorpion, and we had a tiny bit of problems with Scorpion because people couldn't dodge the knockbacks. So you'd have like if you don't know Scorpion, he'd do a knockback that you had to hide behind a bunch of different colored pillars, and he'd break the pillars based on which color that he was, and you'd get knocked back anyway, and it'd cause a bunch of ads to enter the fight. Now this was great for people who wanted to pump the DPS because you could just pad on the ads. So you get people who did this on purpose so they could pad on the ads and get good logs, which hampered our progress a little bit because we were mainly a logs oriented guild, especially for the DPS. But we eventually did get Scorpion down. Were you still playing your druid at this point?
No, no. At that point, my druid was already my alt character. Fury became my main already in heroic Nighthold. I think even before that, even in normal Nighthold when we just started. But yeah, I was already maining Fury, and I do remember that fight, and I was one of the people who padded DPS on the ads
Fuck you.
because Odin's Fury, baby. That's why.
I couldn't do that as an enhancement because like Crash Lightning is such a it's like throwing a spoon at somebody. It's pretty shit. So I just wanted to pump the single target, and I could do just that. So Scorpion's down. All right, now and that leads us on to boss 2, Chronomatic Anomaly.
Wait,
Now
wasn't the cake boss the second one?
he was the third.
Oh, okay.
So Chronomatic Anomaly, we had some fucking serious problems doing Chronomatic Anomaly, and I can't remember why. I just remember us wiping on that boss a shitload.
Exactly. For the life of me, I can't remember what exactly was the problem. I just remember that after so many wipes, way more than you should have on the second boss, uh, we just came back to it. Like we finally killed it, and then next week when we reattempted it, we killed it like on the first pull. I think.
Yeah, we just got it down. There was a couple of mechanics that you just had to get right, and people weren't getting right. But because I was so pissed off at the rate of progression that we were doing at the time, like we were on the second or third lockout, and we were still on fucking Chronomatic. I left the guild and I joined a different guild very quickly and ended up raiding who they were on similar progression, and I fucking got benched. I got benched on my first raid. I didn't even get a chance to try myself out. They just decided that I wasn't going to be in the raid, and of course, as an egotistical WoW player who wants to raid, there's not much really else for me. I've just left behind all my friends in that previous guild. I left that guild, and Linus sent me a message, and he was like, "Oh, I heard you left the guild, man." I was like, "Yeah, dude. I want some better progression. I want some actual results." And he's like, "I'm really sad about that. Because I really enjoy playing with you." I took a step back, and like I realized that I'd fucked up massively. I'd traded progression for all my friends because I liked a lot of people in that guild, and I'd like to say that I was pretty liked.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming back to the guild. Of course, I got roasted a fuckload because I just left and come back with my tail between my legs, especially by Avani, that fucking stuck-up prick. Fucking love you, Avani, but you're a wanker.
Second.
So yeah, we ended up down in Chronomatic. I rejoined the guild, and we progressed on Trilliax. Now, that's this another fight where if you just go unga bunga and don't do the mechanics, the only mechanic on this fight is don't die to the beam. Okay, easy enough. You can't do damage if you don't die, so nobody died. But the hardest thing was everybody eating the cakes. I'm pretty sure the reason why Morton's bald is because he was telling people every fucking 10 seconds, eat the cakes, you filthy bitches. So
I was one of the cake eating boys. I remember
I had
I
no
just
movement.
gobbled them up. I
I
just
had
used my
zero
heroic
movement.
leap, my 2 charges. I think I maybe even attempted that boss with like that legendary that gives me 2 additional leaps.
Yeah. Oh, you absolute hero. I, of course, only ate the cakes if they spawned right next to me. And luckily enough, because I have 10 luck, I rolled my character with 10 luck. They always stood next to me, so I fucking snapped that shit up quick. Nobody can cry at you if you've got a debuff that says you can't eat cakes for a minute, so I can pump for an entire minute. So we downed Trilliax. It was kind of unremarkable, and we kept re-clearing him. Now this is when Nighthold started to really heat up. Nighthold at this point got ridiculous. So you're either entering the realms of like finely tuned bosses that need specific DPS requirements, not a problem for us, or insane strategy, like 5-head strategy. So the first thing that we obviously did was, because it was more suited for us, was we went to Croesus. Croesus I have uploaded on my channel, but it DPS wasn't an issue. We were always going to clear it, but people just could not fucking stop getting hit by the beams. It's not hard. It's in fact like if you look at the bosses now on the other side for Mythic Keystones, Mwazala, the last boss on that dungeon, is basically Croesus. It's fucking Croesus. They just redid it. So it took us a while to clear Croesus, and thankfully Nias had that legendary cape for Holy that let himself res. So he'd wipe, or we'd wipe, and then he'd res us. This heavily contributed us to get the kill.
And this legendary priest cape is gonna come into play when we talk about a later raid tier.
For sure. So next, after we killed Croesus, we had it on farm. You know, once you kill it once, it's pretty much just that. You just have it on farm. The occasional retard would die to a laser, combat res them, no problem. But after like 40 tries or some shit, people stop dying to beams, especially when you've got Morton screaming down your ear. I think Morton re-rolled at this point. I think he stopped being a fire mage and started being a fury warrior.
Yeah. Because it was easier to raid lead when you didn't have to focus so hard on your positioning.
Yeah. And I feel for the guy. I think raid leaders get way too much flack, and I think if you're a good raid leader, you're such an invaluable player. So
Oh, definitely.
I think Morton's a real fucking G.
I really appreciate all the times he's been raid leader. Even through all the bad times.
Yeah, for sure. We love you, Morton. Next up, Tichondrius. Tichondrius, my favorite fight for Nighthawk.
Probably. Yeah.
Now
It was the hardest boss we managed to defeat.
Yep, and we almost had Botanist down, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Thing about Tichondrius is there's an intermission phase where 2 bats spawn, and then when you kill them, they drop a little swirly on the ground, and if you step on it, gives you a damage boost, but it means that when the intermission ends, you don't die. If you don't pick one of these up and the intermission ends, you die like a bitch, and it's really easy to tell when someone dies to that. So it took us ages to get to a point where nobody would die from not getting these things, and the more of these bats that you spawn, the more of them actually spawn. So you kill 2, next spawns 4, then it spawns 8, 16, etc. So it was literally just a case of us zerging down these bats and making sure everybody got the buff. So we did it. And another thing that happened in the fight was I don't know how this worked, right? Because I wasn't one of the most important people to do it. I think you got like a bunch of people with immunities. Is this what you're talking about with the cape?
No, no,
No.
that was what I was talking about with soft cutter.
Okay. Well, yeah, soft
Um,
cutter and Noodles and Nias were really important for this fight because it did like a like a line move that I still don't know how it
I think it was
works.
like bats. I think it was like bats flying out, like a
Yeah,
wave of bats.
like a crypt swarm type
Yeah,
ability. But on normal and heroic, it was literally just don't fucking point it into the raid. But on mythic, you had to stack in a certain way so that the person, if you stacked in a line, the person who was first would get all of the stacks. And I think that was like the cheese strategy. We only ever did the cheese strategy. But you could cheese it by being a rogue, putting on like a certain legendary that let you um, cheese the mechanic, or just suiciding. Like we had priests with the cape who would res you after you get out of Guardian Spirit that you get when you die. So you just let that person die and then get resed, or combat res them.
yeah.
I have
We also
no
use
fucking idea.
we use hunters and soul stones too.
Yeah, but
Pretty
either
much
way,
everything.
that was the easiest part of the fight, unless your name was Soft Cutter. So we downed Tichondrius. That was really good. Next, we have to start on High Botanist. And before we start talking about High Botanist, the guild had started to die at this point. Like, less and less people were logging in for the raids. Morton started to be the raid leader less and less. We just couldn't recruit fast enough, or people just weren't willing to recruit. And we didn't have the numbers to mythic raid anymore. People were fucking burnt out of Nighthold because it was difficult. And our progression ended at High Botanist. We nearly had him down too.
how how much was it? Like 1.8% left?
Yeah, we had him on like a 1%. Like the last ever pull that we did on that guy was a 1%er. We almost had him down. But
We almost voted to have another poll, but most people just were so fucking fed up with the fight.
yeah, and like Tuma Sargeras was on the horizon, and we made the decision that the core of us, including the big boy group, would move guilds. You know, because they're just the core wasn't there anymore. Silverette had quit. Morton fucking quit. So not having a raid leader is a big deal. If you don't have a person to shepherd the meek through the bullshit, everything falls to shit. So here's what we did. And before we get onto that, I was getting sick of Enhance, right? I was seriously getting sick of Enhancement because it had some serious fucking problems, right? The problem was, and I talked about it in my last video, slot machine enhancement shaman. Your entire existence depended on you getting a bunch of Stormstrike procs in a row. And if you didn't get it, it was hair-pullingly annoying. So you'd often get on the pull, you do your opener correctly. Everything's ready, you're set up. You're just waiting to press Stormstrike. Bloodlust goes out. The Stormstrike procs never come. And it's infuriating because prior to this point, I think Hetchkit was still in the core raid group. You could get like consistent procs, at least from what I've noticed in Emerald Nightmare. It was always consistent. I never felt screwed. Sometimes you'd get a bad little moment, but never to this extent. And I was sick of it. I was sick of the RNG. I was sick of having such high variance in the damage. I wanted to output my skill proportionately into damage done. So I'll let this seed grow after a little while. And all of the fucking Swedish boys had left for the summer because this was around summer 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, and I no longer had my Hechka to bounce off and compete, and nobody fucking played enhancement, so I was really sad about that. But we moved on. Now we're moving into the Tomb of Sargeras era. Throwing away our humanity was the big theme right here. We ended up joining a guild called Fallen Destiny. Still have logs from when we were in that guild, and that's the only reason why I actually remember the guild name. And we had there were so many problems with this guild, dude. It was a very cliquey piece of shit guild with a bunch of piece of shit officers. Now, something that you need to know about Linus is that Linus has always wanted to be part of how the guild is run, and being an officer, him always managing to wangle himself into an officer position was an instrumental part of how the guild operated, and it often gave us huge leverage, right? Because if any of us got benched for any reason, Linus would have a lot to say about that, and he would get us back in. So we joined this guild, Fallen Destiny, and we cleared normal incredibly easily, as usual, because we brought most of the good core over. And we had some issues like clearing the endish portion of Heroic Tomb of Sargeras with this guild, but we did end up killing Jaden first with them. No, I think Sairex has gone AFK. So
No,
no.
I'm listening.
Oh, okay. It's just you muted yourself on Discord, so I thought, oh shit,
Yeah,
he's gone.
because my chair is making noise.
I don't care about that. This is already a fucked video. But for now, I'll talk about the new best in slot legendary, the fucking hands for enhancement shaman. If you spent Maelstrom, which was the what's it called?
Resource?
The resource that you spend, you had a chance to go into like the biggest cooldown, Ascendance, and this was like a 3-minute cooldown on a talent roll that you could get. So if you got like 10 seconds of that, holy shit, you were popping. And sometimes it'd pop back to back, back to back to back. Sometimes I'd even have like 3 or 4 stacks of this legendary popping off, and we'd fucking wipe, and I'd go ballistic. Ultimate slot machine legendary. It was amazing when I had it, but terrible when it fucked up. The thing about this guild is we ended up having a massive drama with this guild
Oh
over
yeah.
Discord. All right, so things that they would often do, and I was very aware of how like clique guilds would run, and I'd seen this cliquish behavior, and so had all of us. We saw it coming a fucking mile off, and it culminated up until this point. So they'd have an officer channel, because that's what you do, but they drag favored players into the officer channel, buddy them up, do content with them, whatever, favor them in the loot council, because we always had loot council guilds. I fully believe that loot council is the best way to do things, but yeah. Chronic, our boy from the big boy group,
Yeah.
he succumbed to this fucking cliquish guild. So we lost Chronic, and he converted to the dark side. So what did we do? Do you remember what we did, Sairex?
We grabbed all the players that preferred us over them and we fucked off.
Yep, but before we did that, we had it out with them in Discord, right? Oh my god,
yeah.
it was fucking beautiful. I really wish I would have recorded it, and I also have screenshots of like massive long paragraphs of arguments that we had about how the guild was run, the clique mentality that the guild had. But eventually, we split ties. We took the core again. We fucked off, and we joined a guild called Cartel. Now, I know what you're thinking. What happened to the big boy group? Because Chronic was in the big boy group. Well, we just fucking rotated him out, and we put Zender and Rumke, whoever was available, in. Because Chronic was a regular big boy member. He was really
Yeah,
good.
but
He was a good player.
we had other people who would join the big boy group M pluses quite often, like Sam Keel, for example.
Yep.
Some of the Swede boys could have joined. Like I think Billy Ben was the one that was the most social out of the Swedish boys. He was the
He
only
was
one that
hilarious.
actually talked. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Bless him and his squeaky ass door.
But Chronic was actually quite a bit upset with us because we'd, from his point of view, dropped him from the big boy group. We
When,
hadn't.
from our point of view, it looked like he dropped us for the new guild.
Exactly. So we had enough of that shit. We fucked off and we joined a guild called Cartel. Enter two massive figures. All right, I have a lot to say on these guys. First person, Actis. All right, a little bit about Actis. Actis was like a fucking SS general, right? No fucking about in the raid. He was the raid leader. Things were done on his watch, and you know what? He was a really skilled player, and he knew a lot. And I really liked Actis, and I think he
He
had.
was a paladin?
Yes, he was a
Okay.
paladin.
Thank God. I was worried I was having a stroke.
Diederik was also a paladin, but that's why you might have been getting confused. But onto him in a minute. Actis, I had a lot of respect for, and he kind of liked me because I just turned up to raid. I didn't say shit unless it was bants over the Discord while we were killing trash, and did my role. So Actis was cool in my book, but he was no fucking about. And the second person getting introduced to this story is Diederik, otherwise known as Paladin. He was a healer paladin, funnily enough, and he was a big fucking memer. Both these guys were Dutch, and even though they didn't know each other in real life, because they shared that Dutch sort of camaraderie, they were often found together. In fact, I don't think Actis actually cared that much for Diederik. I think Diederik happened to be the guild leader, Actis happened to be the raid leader, and they both wanted to make it work.
And they both happened to be Dutch.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for Diederik because of what we did to him. He didn't deserve that, but he had it coming.
He
Quick
just
die.
said two opposite things.
Yeah, I know, but like you have to realize because you weren't an officer then and I was. I'm getting way ahead of myself, and this will fall into the narrative, right? First off, I just want to preface this with Linus is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Cool player, good player, but he's a ruthless, bad motherfucker. All right, he will
Oh, yeah.
he will gouge out your eyeballs and eat them in front of you if that is what he wants to do. And Cartel was definitely the guild that we got the most progression in, and by far, Tomb of Sargeras was my favorite raid tier. And at this point, I'd improved so much as a player, and I was fucking blasting, mate. Even if I wasn't enjoying Enhance as much as I wanted to, I undeniably was blasting. I was like one of the top DPS in the raid. So were you actually, Sairex? You were pretty good as Fury, even though Fury wasn't that good in TOS.
Oh, Fury was really like low tier in TOS, but I still fucking played it, and we had a lot of fuckboys that we met throughout our times that couldn't keep up with me, even though I was playing a gimped spec.
Yeah,
And those were the people that were telling me, "Why aren't you playing Arms?"
Arms was a really good spec for
It
Tomb of
was, but fuck
Sargeras.
it. I didn't like it. It was boring to me. Fury had a more fun rotation for me.
That's the important thing, guys. Even if like a spec is doing really good, if you don't enjoy it, you're not gonna do well. But if you really enjoy a shit spec or just any spec, you'll do really well with it. And this is
It's
where
like
go on.
it's like my friend Roman here in Motherland says. Rankings do not matter if your arms don't grow out of right place.
What?
It means it means that if if you're a if you're a fucking idiot who can't figure out how to even decently play the game, it doesn't matter if you're playing the best spec in the game or the worst one. And if you're a competent player that actually puts in some time and effort into learning his rotation, you're gonna you're gonna have good results even on underperforming specs.
Jesus Christ! See, that right there is a Romanism. We have to talk about Roman now because I can't believe we haven't talked about him. Uh, you're better at
Yeah.
this than me. This is your domain, so go for it.
Roman is another friend from real life. Uh, a WoW player, not really that as serious as we are. He never really was into the whole thing of showing up to raids. But he was a good player. He was somebody who always, like I mentioned before, did a lot of research on the specs he wanted to play. He was mostly DPS. He liked bumping, pumping deeps. He liked topping meters. Just a very solid player and a pretty good PvPer as well.
But he was a grand fucking memer. Russian
And
guy
of
that never
yeah,
made any sense, right? That he would say shit, never make any sense whatsoever.
that's the thing. I every time he said something in his broken English that to you sounded like complete gibberish, I understood completely what he meant. Like, and I knew exactly how he meant to say it and why it came out the way it did.
And that's why you're the really good Roman translator. Like, just with what was said before, like I had no fucking idea. He'd say something like that, and I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then Sairex would come in and save the day and be like, "Yeah, this is what he meant." Oh, right, okay.
Svirle.
Oh god, that's not even in here, but I suppose we can add an addendum towards the end about this. But
Oh.
there's another person that I want to introduce as a main character in the story, all right? A lady called Caroline. Now, a little bit
Oh.
about how raiding was done before and how we had people distributed. There was no fucking women, no girls, no ladies.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Okay,
You're aren't you forgetting somebody?
there was that shaman healer and Amanda. Oh shit! I forgot to talk about Amanda when we left.
Wait, was that her name?
That was yeah. Her name was
Uh,
Ananda in game. It was the monk brewmaster. Um,
oh,
oh
no,
god,
I'm talking about Dixie.
we need to step back a couple of
Because
bits.
Dixie was with the original Linus crew.
Yep.
No, Linus came with the Dixie
Yeah.
crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember
Oh
Nias fucking
fuck.
hated them so much because Linus was the one that criticized him about his underperforming healing in Nighthold. He called it
Oh.
fucking Dixie crew hate them. Suka ble.
Damn, I completely forgot about that. I'm glad you said that, but now I have to go back to Ananda. When we were leaving Fallen Destiny, one of the raid leaders from there, Amanda, um, you know, she was just a fucking female. That's just about it, really. Like nothing. Um, there's nothing to say apart from that. But Linus, in his like venomous snake tongue, oh god, I don't think I can even
Wait,
repeat
wait,
what
wait,
he
wait.
said.
I just now realized who you're talking about. I completely forgot her name.
The ape word.
Yeah.
Oh shit, yeah, I can't repeat what he said, but dude, it was vicious, venomous. He ruined this girl's entire fucking career with what he said to her as his parting words. Shit.
I'm I mean what he said to us in private was even worse.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And that made me realize how much of a savage cunt uh, Linus is, and cemented him as one of my favorite people in history. But anyway, back to Caroline. And we had like a lack of female presence in the guild, and at least outspoken ones, right? Caroline was a very outspoken female, and she was really good at the game too. She played like a druid healer, but
Yeah.
she would upload these pictures of herself, like Discord profile pictures, in um,
Oh yeah,
very
showing off
lewd
a lot of
pictures.
skin,
Oh yeah,
cleavage.
and I don't even mind saying like she's fucking hot. She was really
Yeah.
hot. She was
Sh-
thick. I
Uh
might have to edit that out, but yeah,
I
she
mean,
was very nice person, very hot, but she also had a boyfriend, so nobody gave a shit about like pursuing or simping or anything about that.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it, but I know a little bit uh about a development in her life that happened recently.
Oh yeah, I know about that too. Um,
Oh,
we can talk about it after, but there's no need to type it in here. But yeah, Caroline is one of my favorite people from the expansion. Good at the game, and she comes into this story a little bit later. So now I suppose shit, we're
we
like a
should have a
fucking.
little break. We've been talking for quite a while.
All right, let's take a quick break. Okay, so me and Sairex took a quick break, and we're ready to start discussing at length again the rest of Legion. I don't think there's very much left, but we got to talk about it anyway, and there is still some juicy bits. So
Might as well, since we started.
yeah, uh, last we talked about was mythic progression on Tomb of Sargeras. So we might as well start with Goroth, the first boss. I don't think we had any difficulties with Goroth whatsoever. I know it wasn't the easiest boss ever, especially for like a an opening boss, but we smashed it.
Yeah, I would say so.
The thing about Cartel as well that we joined is that there were a lot of good players. Like in addition to the good core joining, we also had some seriously good players who were already there. Actis was a good player. Even Diederik was a good player. I remember specifically a guy called Blood Hulk Deeps, a paladin
Yeah,
player who pumped the shit out of the game. He had like 90% logs on everything. Very good player. I like playing with Blood Hulk.
he was really good. Yeah, I remember him.
So we smashed Goroth, and we quickly moved on to Demonic Inquisition, which was also a very quick progression. Demonic Inquisition was really fucking easy.
Yeah, it was only slightly more difficult than the heroic version.
Yeah, so it was a freebie, free loot whenever you did it. Next up, Harjatan. This was
Ah.
still an easy boss, but
Oh fuck! Sorry.
oh, it's all right. Don't worry about it. It was still an easy boss, but slightly harder than the entry level 2 that we just talked about. And me and Sairex really liked that boss. I liked Harjatan. What do you think, Sairex? Uh oh, he's fucking gone. I'll cut out the time that he's not speaking. Or not. Nah, fuck this. I'm just going to upload it all as one. But the thing with Harjatan was that, in fact, the first three bosses was just, you know, you do enough DPS and do the mechanics that don't instantly wipe you, and you've pretty much got it. At this point, we were still heavily in the throes of doing Mythic Plus with the big boy group, and whatever
Sorry,
really.
I'm back.
Ah, okay. So we were just talking about Harjatan. I know you definitely had something to say about Harjatan.
Oh, that was easily my favorite fight. Uh, it was one where a Fury Warrior, when using cooldowns properly, could really pump some nice damage. And it was one of the fights where I would compete with Sam Keel all the time. He was an Affliction Warlock who were also monsters in AoE fights back then. Probably still are. I don't know. I haven't played Shadowlands yet.
All I know
But
from Legion and Warlocks is that Warlocks were good for the entire expansion, if not
yeah,
the best. Affliction Warlock was like a Blizzard favorite. One of the developers must have been a fucking Affliction player because they never were any lower than the top five.
yeah, and I wouldn't say Destruction was all that weak either. Demonology was kind of the weird weird meme spec, but at one point it was pretty strong, and some players did quite well with it.
Yeah, it was on like a fight by fight basis, and this was before the rework for demonology happened. It's been reworked now, I think, like post
Hmm.
BFA. But yeah, I remember Rumke was a destruction player. He was an avid destruction player because we had Sam Keel who played almost exclusively Affliction. We had Rumke that played almost exclusively destruction. They're vastly different playstyles. They were still amazing players and would compete against each other quite often. Um, Next up after Hajtan would be Sisters of the Moon.
Also a cool boss.
A cool boss. I really like that boss, but it is where we had our first real difficulties, and this is where we actually transferred out of being like a pump uh, guild where you just threw a bunch of DPS at it and hoped that things would happen, and we started doing the tactics properly for Mythic Raiding.
Yeah,
Um,
that was definitely that one.
and we got stuck on Sisters of the Moon for quite a long while. And I remember the night that we cleared it, I got shit faced. I got really fucking drunk. And our raid leader wasn't there. Actis had fucked off for the night. And I just took it upon myself to start calling out all of the mechanics and do this drunken raid leading shit. And you know what? We actually fucking downed the boss.
Yeah,
Um,
I
it,
remember I was
it was
there.
so good, dude. It was so fucking good. Um, but there was a meme that was created out of the guild after that point. I think it was at the last 10% that we got it down. We've been doing it for so long. I just wanted to see the end of this fucking boss. So I was just screaming like, "Kill the boss! Kill the boss! Kill the boss! Kill the boss!" And that was like a mainstay meme for the rest of the expansion.
Yeah, kill the boss. It's
And
so
we did do it.
simple yet it's so sweet.
So we got that shit down. Sisters of the Moon fucking downed, and we never had problems with that boss again.
No.
Uh, the next,
Oh,
sorry, go on.
yeah. No, the next boss. I was about to ask, were we still with Cabal when we downed it?
We were still with Cartel, yeah.
Cartel, yes, sorry.
Desolate Host. In fact, we were there for the boss after that as well. So the Desolate Host. Unfortunately, Sairex had to be our fucking guinea pig for this boss because the fight necessitated that you had 3 tanks. So we just got Sairex to change into tank spec and like do some fucking bullshit. You can probably tell what you did because I can't remember what you did. I was on the opposite side. I was on like the living realm every time.
I was basically just tanking one certain mob in the Dead Realm, I believe, or the Living Realm.
It
I
was
don't
the
even
dead realm.
remember.
I remember that much.
Probably. And I just had to tank him far, far away and just try to keep myself alive. Like I think I was out of range of healers all the time.
Or you'd like because it was a fucking snore fest for you. I remember that much. Like
Yeah,
on
it
the
was
on the
really boring.
outskirts of the room, you could you could fall down. Like if you needed to call for a wipe, you just say, "Okay, just fall into the pit." And that little ad that Cyrex was tanking, it could push you back. It knocked you back. So we'd see Cyrex go from like 100% health to zero and be like, Cyrex, what the fuck happened? And he's like, sorry, dudes, I spaced out. I've got fucking knocked off the edge.
Yeah, because it was so fucking boring. It dealt almost no damage. All I had to do was keep my basic defensive cooldowns up and preferably not get knocked over the edge.
Yeah, but Desolate
So I would
Host. Sorry, go on.
no, it's just that's just why I would usually tank it on the staircase, but even that would just fucking bounce me off walls all the time.
Yeah, but Desolate Host was a really easy boss in my opinion. I don't think it was proportionate to the difficulty that should have been for a boss that late in the raid.
For me, it felt like it took way longer than it probably did because I was having such a boring time.
Yeah, if I were you, I would have just tried to pump the fucking best prot logs.
Nah, fuck. I
Even
think
then, you wouldn't have
I
done it
think
because you haven't got ads to cleave off, and any other tank would have.
exactly, and my rage generation is also crap since it deals no damage to me.
But we downed Desolate Host very quickly.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I was so fucking sick of enhancement, dude. I was done. I didn't want to quit, but I had leveled a Frost Death Knight, and I had actually fallen in love with this Frost Death Knight. I really loved the 1-2-3 playstyle where I could focus on the more finer aspects of, the advanced level of dealing damage in World of Warcraft. So like maximizing your global cooldowns, um, managing your resources correctly, things like that. And overall, Frost Death Knight to me was a lot more consistent than the slot machine mess that enhancement had become. So I asked the officers, which was Linus, Actis, Diederik, if they'd let me swap, and they were really skeptical because like they'd fed me all this gear, and they knew that I could blast as enhancement, um, and they were really skeptical about it, and they were fucking dead wrong, mate. They were dead fucking wrong. I switched to Frost Death Knight. I already did a shitload of Mythic Plus on it, so I had some decent gear. I did not have the best in slot legendaries yet, but that didn't really matter because I had two, and that's all you really needed to do very well. I had Sephir's Secret, and I had Cold Heart plus one other. Can't remember what it was. I think it was the hat. It was the fucking hat that was like shitty. Only good for Nighthold. But I proved them wrong, dude. I passed 90+% on every single mythic boss that we killed in Tomb of Sargeras with that Frost Death Knight, and I passed 97% plus on heroic and normal. Woo, fucking bad man with your fucking heroic and normal passes. I was killing it. I don't care about that. I was killing it. I was having such a fucking good time until until the next boss that we did. It was time to progress on Mistress Cezine.
No.
Oh, oh my god, dude. This has such a fucking big discussion because this boss was like if the Desolate Host no Desolate Host was if the Sisters of the Moon was like a 3, Mistress Azine was like a 9, even after all of the nerfs. Because we killed her post nerfs. She was nerfed to shit, and she was still ridiculous, dude. We had. Do you know how many wipes we had on Mistress Azine, Sairex?
I don't recall, but it was a lot.
237 wipes on Mistress Azine before we
Oh
got our
lord.
first kill. And after we got our first kill, we never killed it again. What's very
Never again.
strange is on the first kill, I passed 85% on my Frost Death Knight. This wasn't because I did well, this was because nobody fucking killed the boss. So, like, by proxy, I got a good log because nobody killed that cunt. Mistress Azine didn't kill the guild, but it definitely contributed to some burnout.
Oh yeah.
However, I liked that fight. I liked it. I didn't like wiping 237 times, but I liked it. It was a cool fight, even though there was a fucking lot going on. I've got screenshots, and I'll probably put some up of like so much shit happening on the screen. How the fuck are you even supposed to function? Fuck
Oh
Mistress
yeah.
Azine.
It was one of the most chaotic fights I've ever experienced.
So
Also, I just
much.
checked and I had a 94 parse on that fight.
Exactly. I'm not. Wait, I said exactly like you're bad, but it's just so few people did that fight. Simply just killing that boss and not dying meant that you were probably passing very high. I still have nightmares about that boss.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't fun.
There's one thing that I forgot to gloss over in the midst of all this, and this is the Mage Tower. Like, Tomb of Sargeras and the Broken Shore campaign is when the Mage Tower was out.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it all that much because the prot warrior one was just So AIDS.
I
I
did
really
the
hated it.
I did the enhancement one. That one was kind of easy because all you did was hex the big one that casted the annoying shit, and then you just DPS down the other two. And I had insane gear on Tricro at that point, so I blasted that down. Elemental, I can't remember what the elemental one was, but I did it anyway. You know, I've got the challenge artifact on that character, but I didn't do the resto one because I'm not a fucking healer. What do you think I am, some sort of bitch? That was the opinion I held at the time. Obviously, I know now that healing is really important and stuff like that, but I just wasn't good at it. I wasn't willing to put in the nether shards, so I ended up doing the enhancement one. I did the elemental one. I did all of them on Death Knight. I think Unholy was definitely the easiest because you could use overworld buffs, like the overpowered world buffs that you'd get from being in Legion counted because Agatha was an overworld boss for some reason. The Frost one was a little bit more difficult. I've got that on my channel. They got quite a lot of views actually. And the Blood one was difficult. It was really difficult because you just often got yeeted off the edge.
Yeah, all
That
the
took me a
tanks
long.
had the same one, and it
Yeah,
was annoying.
the tank one
And
was really hard.
Valen was useless.
Oh, not only were they useless in terms of like output, but if you accidentally positioned them wrongly or they just happened to be in the wrong place, it bricked the fight for you because they just stand in AoEs. Like, it would one shot them and it fails the instance for you immediately. There is a fucking reason why Asmongold has that video of him smashing his head onto the keyboard and having a red lump on his head because they were hard. They were really hard, but I managed to power it through. It was just simply a case of I had the really good gear, so I played that fight like a DPS fight and pulled the retard mobs away from the infernals. I eventually got it. I can't remember what other challenge artifacts I did. I definitely did the Windwalker one. Yeah, I think that's it really. I had most characters capped for Legion, but those are the only ones that I remember doing. I did Outlaw Rogue one. In fact, I did all the Rogue ones. They were easy. I did those with shit gear too. In fact, I thought to myself, I cheese those by having really good gear. So I did them with shit gear. That was fun. Back to TOS anyway. Next boss after Mistress Azine, and we only had one lockout on it, was Maiden of Vigilance. We got 20 pulls on her, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, and not one of those attempts lasted longer than 15 seconds. Like, you could tell that the pump factor was still like a thing because we could not fuck it up for the encounter to last longer than 15 seconds. But this was right at the end of the tier. So again, we were just like, let's wait for Antorus, bro. We're gonna get cutting edge on Antorus. You know, it's gonna be the longest bit of the expansion. Let's just do Antorus. And a couple of things actually happened which hampered our progress in this regard. Okay, so Actis quit. This meant we no longer had our raid leader, and this is a serious problem because you need a fucking raid leader. And this far into the expansion, like third out of 4 raids into the expansion, you're not going to find another raid leader unless you join a new guild. Enter Antorus. You know, we had Antorus thrust upon us before we could do anything about it. We had serious problems recruiting. Let me tell you a little bit more about Linus, right? Linus would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning every single day with a cup of coffee in his hand. I think several cups of coffee, fucking flasks full of coffee. And he would recruit people on VOV Progress, as he'd call it, and the forums. He'd do this for 5 hours every day. This guy was a fucking trooper. I have no idea how he did that. I tried recruiting for a little while, and it was hell. But he managed to keep it happening. He managed to keep recruiting new people into the guild that were actually like worth their salt. And as a result of Axis leaving, I had to step up to raid leading. People had suggested that because I handled the Sisters of the Moon fight so well and gotten us through that shit, that I should be the raid leader, and I'd pretty much have to. Otherwise, shit's not going to happen anymore. So I stepped up as raid leader, which made me part of the Loot Council and consequently an officer. I hated this. I just wanted to turn up and pump. So after so long of playing Legion and raiding, I was starting to burn out. And I was starting to burn out so much faster because I was the raid leader. So normal, as you know, it was a fucking joke. We dumpstered it, as usual. Heroic, I can't remember, even though it's more recent than all of the other things. I know we had the split, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Sairex, do you remember how Antor's heroic progression went? Because we did it for sure.
Yeah. It was a little bit difficult, to be honest. At first. But wait, no. Wait, the fuck am I saying? Didn't we clear it like super fast?
I can't remember. That's the thing. We definitely cleared it, but just how quickly I can't remember.
This is some Mandela effect shit.
Yeah. But either way, we'll just agree to disagree. We fucking beat heroic, and we went into mythic progression. So I remember this much at least. We did Garothy World Breaker. That was fine. That's on my channel. We did Fellhounds of Sargeras. That was fine. In fact, I should feel confident about the way that we did these fights because I was raid leader. I still have like my secret Antorus folder on my computer. So we did that shit. Fuck, dude. Do you remember that night where McNoodles got shit
I
faced?
wanted to mention that. I wanted to find a moment to mention that. Yes.
We can talk about it now. That was the best raid of my life, dude. Let's talk about it.
He had a party at his house. Like, he had a bunch of friends over and they were getting fucking shit faced. And at one moment, while drunk, he decided he's gonna get online and raid. It was like we were doing half. I think it was like half mains, half alts, just a heroic run, like
Yeah, an
a
optional
farm
night.
run. Yeah, optional night just for fun. And I came late because I was working that night and I got drunk at work. I got drunk with the bartender at work on tequila and beer. And then I got home and fucking McNoodles is fucking shit faced. Uh, I only joined for like the second or third boss, but I had the time of my life.
We only got up to like the fourth boss.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
ended
we
in
didn't get
flames,
far.
but shit, dude, that was my favorite raid of all time. If you're listening to this, Noodles, I'm sorry to bring this up again. In fact, I unlisted it on my channel because even if I talk to him about it this day, he's so fucking embarrassed that he got that shit faced. And the thing about McNoodles is that he's a really conservative sort of guy. He's a really nice guy, and he tends not to um, be nasty to people unless that he's seriously triggered, and it takes so much. That guy has the patience of a saint. And we had this tank Brewstein, and he was a bit of a mug, to be honest. He always liked to complain. And
Wait, wasn't Brucey mostly a DPS monk?
yeah, but he had a tank off spec, and he always had something to say, dude. So in this off raid, he was tanking, and he called out Noodles for something like that, and Noodles just fucking backhanded commented him. Like he didn't even mean to do it. He just had his filter off at that one moment, and it ended Brewstein's entire career. In fact, I think Brewstein stopped playing after that.
Mm. Cause yeah, the thing with Noodles is if he gets mad at you, you know you fucked up.
Yeah, you know,
I know I've been on that side of his wrath. Cause I have things that can be criticized about my play style, definitely. And usually he's very constructive and very kind, but one time I was acting like a fucking idiot more than usual, and he snapped, and it was like a moment of revelation.
Yeah, it's like when you're being told off by your mum when you've done something completely idiotic. Like McNoodles is an engineer, so everything that he says is usually fact based, very objective and constructive, like Sairex just said. So it, when you're getting burnt off him, holy shit, it really hurts. You feel really disappointed with yourself.
He
Anyway,
has a gift.
enough about McDoodles' drunken raid night. That'll forever be solidified as one of my um, favorite times in WoW history. So McNoodles got shit faced. Now we have to come to Antor and High Command on Mythic. Holy shit, dude! I fucking hated this fight. This fight made me contemplate my existence because it's not a hard fight, especially because we did things very properly, like in the way that a mythic guild would be. Me and Linus would get together on Discord and we would discuss the tactics. We would discuss where the groups were going to go. He was the healing um, officer. He had a lot to say about how the healing was done. So we had everything sorted out, but it was just that people couldn't get their shit together, and people kept standing on these fucking mines that spawned throughout the course of the fight. Even on the kill that we did, that's on my channel, uh, you know, there's so many fucking mines, so movement is really tight, and we eventually got it down. It took way too long, and once we killed it, we we kept it on farm. Basically, I wasn't gonna let us regress back into shithood, but I really hated Antor and High Command.
I actually loved it, even though I was really, really going full ape mode on it because I could pump deeps with my AoE. It was actually the one fight where one of my really weird trinkets from that same boss that I got on heroic difficulty. It's like you build up stacks and then you lay mines down where you are. So if you do that with cooldowns when there's a bunch of mobs spawning around you,
Which there was a
that's like,
lot.
yeah, that was a lot on that fight.
Mobs spawned very frequently during that fight.
I really liked that fight. It was really interesting.
I think I'd have liked it more if I wasn't the raid leader,
Yeah,
and
you
that's going to
would.
be a recurring trend for the rest of the bosses that I'm going to talk about. We're actually nearing the end of the Legion journey so far, so we fucking I wouldn't say smashed High Command, but we beat it finally. We had it on farm, and the next thing that we went to do was ENR. Um,
Oh.
Before we talk about ENR, because ENR was a tough one, we have to talk about the return of Actis and the insane weak aura. All right? So Actis came back. I don't know how, but Linus managed to get Actis back, and he was going to co-raid lead with me because that was a pain point that I had, is that I just didn't want to raid lead, and Actis was really fucking good at it, but we decided that we'd share the responsibility so that neither of us burnt each other out, because that was the reason why he left, is that he didn't want to shepherd a bunch of fucking idiots through raid content. He had high standards and he was a good player, and realistically, if he was like in a top guild, he'd have had some very good success. So I see his pain point right there. So we shared the responsibility, and he sat and constructed a entire Antorus weak aura, normal, heroic, and mythic, all of it. Every mechanic told you exactly what to do, even if most of the weak auras were like had the text saying "fuck off." You know exactly what to do. Um, amazing, amazing, dude.
Yeah, I remember that week aura blew my fucking mind.
I was like, how the fuck has he made this? And thank God, Actis has saved us from the progression burnout. So
Yeah,
we went to do ENR, and ENR took us quite some time.
yeah.
Um, it was a hard fight. It just took a lot of communication because from what I can remember from the fight, it was like a tower defense. It was exactly like a tower defense, but with a tightish DPS requirement. You had to make sure that you're in the right position. Groups had to be split in the right position at the right time to make sure that things died when they should. And every couple of minutes or so, a group of 4 people had to go to the other end of fucking Narnia to play this mechanic where you went into a tower, kill this ad, you get a buff, and you do something with the buff. I can't remember. It was a cool fight, but holy shit, did it require so much communication and like organization.
True.
But we did it, and that was the important part. And we actually, I
If
only think we did it once, right?
if I recall correctly, we actually like the core raid got the fight down pretty spot on. But at that point, our guild was going through like some new recruits because we were missing members, and these new ones were like, uh,
Oh no, no! I know what you're talking about. Shit, we forgot to talk about the hijacking. We forgot to talk about the fucking hijacking at the guild. Holy shit! So, the current officer team was me, Linus, Diederik, and I think a couple of other people. And Diederik had started to show his true colors as a bit of a fucking mug, right? So we couldn't get shit done with him because he was the guild leader. We couldn't get much past him. Um, Even though he was compliant with a lot of the things that we asked, we realized that we'd have to take the guild into our own hands. So, what did Linus do? Linus got all of the core raiders, basically everybody in the fucking guild from Cartel, and invited them to a separate Discord. And he was like, "Yeah, dude, we're going to make a new guild, and then we're gonna smash Mythic and Taurus. We're gonna do it, but we're gonna do it without Diederik." And everybody knew that Diederik was a bit of a fucking memer, so they were on board. And then one day, we just, while Diederik was offline, we fucking left the guild, made a new guild, and left Diederik on his own. And he was so mad, justifiably so mad. This is why I was
yeah.
saying, like, we did the dirty on him. We so fucking did the dirty on him. And I think Diederik actually stalked Linus for a little while to tell him what of a piece of shit that he was, even though it was like me and Linus's joint idea that we ditch Diederik and start things anew. So we got the fuck out of there. And that was what Sairex is talking about, is that we had the main core group of people who did ENR down, because we did this around Antoran High Command. And, we had some new recruits that didn't quite get it, and we had some adjusting to do. But we did it. But yeah, shit, I can't believe I almost forgot about the hijacking of the guild. We stole this fucking guy's guild from him. It was a spectacle.
It was the heist of the century.
We've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of during Legion. In fact, we trailblazed through 2 guilds, and one of them died just from like burning its running its course essentially. But we fucking destroyed 2 guilds, like with Fallen Destiny. We even saw how they would do after we left, and we fucking smashed them in progression. Like they stopped playing. They
Yeah.
disbanded. And I'm sort of glad because those guys were cooks.
Yeah. I even forgot, like, I completely forgot all of their names, even the name of the guild, because it's so fucking forgettable.
Yeah. All I remember is Fallen Destiny, Jordan, Amanda, and that's it. And that's all that needs to be said. And the aping situation. That's a trigger warning, if any. But yeah,
Yeah.
back to the raiding progression. So we downed ENR eventually, and all that's left now is to progress linearly, because that's it from the divergent boss paths. We're going to go to Portal Keeper Hasabel next. That's also on my channel. And at this point, nobody was interested in raiding anymore. We just simply did it out of obligation. We destroyed some guy's guild, and we simply had to press on. Otherwise, it was all for naught. So we made progression on Hasabel, made a lot of organizational choices, and we got it down. Took way longer than it had to. That boss is really unremarkable, but we downed it. And next boss, Iminar. Realistically, if we would have kept going as a guild, we would have gotten cutting edge. There's no doubt about it, because there was such this was like really early on into the raid tier as well. Like we were getting actual like cutting edge numbers. I think we were top 100 for the guild for Antorus. But Iminar, man, me and Linus, we were fucking burnt out, dude. He wasn't interested in recruiting anymore. I was burnt out. I didn't want to be the raid leader anymore. Me and Linus just fucking exploded the guild. You know, we basically told everybody, like, you know, go.
Pack your bags.
Yeah, we're done. You might as well look for, if you want to continue on Taurus, find a new guild, dude, because we're done. And that's it. We exploded the guild. That was the end of Legion, as far as I'm concerned, until the pre-patch of BFA, which, and I don't know, that's BFA. I don't have to talk about that.
No, let's leave that for another time, or not talk about it at all.
Yeah, BFA was pretty garbage in my opinion. I didn't like BFA that much. Mythic Plus was fine.
Well, that was a long fucking talk.
Yeah. Sorry for taking up so much of your time, but I really had to get that off my chest, and I enjoyed making that. I enjoyed reminiscing about old and glorious times.
I also had fun reminiscing. I'm glad I joined this little thing.
So right, that's the end of the video, guys. I'm glad you listened to what is basically British ASMR garbage and Latvian fellow do the memes.
Hello.
Thank you very much for watching. I think I'm gonna edit this and then go to fucking bed. Maybe do some Mythic Plus before tomorrow's reset.
Yeah, okay, dude. It's really late here. It's almost 2 a.m. See you around.
I'll see you later, everybody.